Hello. Welcome to dublab LA Phone Home by dublab. My name is Michelle Luke. I am a music and a drug journalist. And I'm really excited today because basically when dublab asked if I could host this show, we kind of came up with the idea of doing a psychedelic themed broadcast. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about, the idea of shroom music, what it is, how we defined it, and sort of going through the history and the culture of psychedelic parties and music. Joining us later today is also going to be Matthewdavid from Leaving Records. Super excited to have him on board. I feel like those of you who live in LA and are cool have probably been to one of Leaving Records' outdoor concert series. And to me, they sort of exemplify a lot about what psychedelic music in LA is about. So Matthew is going to be doing a really special live set. And we are going to also just talk about sort of his relationship to mushroom music. Okay, so let's get started. I wanted to kind of start out with a track that basically I think is a really good introduction to shroom music. It's a collaboration between an electronic artist named East Forest and the spiritual guru Ram Dass. So in case you guys don't know who Ram Dass is, he was an American spiritual teacher whose book Be Here Now is kind of, the seminal Eastern spirituality book, especially amongst boomers. And in this song, it's really amazing. He talks about his first shroom trip and how it kicked off his spiritual life. I don't think many people can say that their first trip was with Timothy Leary and Allen Ginsberg. And it kind of starts out with him talking about how psilocybin, which is shrooms, is his friend. It's really cute. It's very Ram Dass. It's very sweet and poignant and profound at the same time. So I'm just going to play a little bit of it, and then we will move on to the other songs. I remember when I played this song at my shroom rave, someone complained. They were like, wait, this is too intense. Like, I feel like I'm at Berghain. And I was like, no, bitch, you're not at Berghain. You're at a shroom rave in the forest. And to me, I think that, the fact that this song can be considered psychedelic and can be played out in the forest, and that its name is matsolin, towards the sun, that this song can also belong at an outdoor psychedelic party, to me is very interesting and quite transgressive. So next up, very excited to talk to my guest, Matthewdavid, who runs a music label called Leaving Records. So I am a huge fan of Leaving Records, and honestly, the last few times that I've tripped during the pandemic, I've always kind of put on a Leaving Records mix. And I'm really interested in talking to Matthew, firstly about his party, listen to music outside in the daylight under a tree, which is probably one of the most beautiful party names I've ever heard. But we're going to talk about mushroom music. We're going to talk about throwing psychedelic parties. And we're going to talk about his own music, including his upcoming album, Mycelium Music, which should be coming out later this year. So without further ado, Matthewdavid.
Check, check. Had to flip the switch on. Thanks for having me here, Vans Channel 66, and Michelle and Lottie. Peace to dublab. That's my day one. Leaving Records would not be here if it weren't for dublab. Factual information. Well, thanks for all the kind words, Michelle, in regards to the label and the community and the events and the parties. It really does mean a lot.
No, absolutely. I think you guys are doing some of the most interesting and meaningful events in LA right now, or, before the pandemic at least. And actually, you did do some stuff during the pandemic, which we should also talk about. But let's start with this party. Listen to music outside in the daylight under a tree. So it was happening in a park, in Highland Park, and it was a free community event. And I remember the first time that I pulled up, I saw all these like super cute kind of, queer people dressed in a lot of cozy knitwear, sort of sipping teas, families, children, a lot of like live jazzy ambient music. And to me, it felt very psychedelic, right? Like, I don't think that party was giving me like alcohol vibes. I was like, this is the perfect environment to take a bunch of shrooms and chill out and like absorb the music in a really different way. So can you tell me about how the idea for this event kind of came around, and were you thinking about curating a psychedelic space?
I was thinking about curating a safe space, that had nothing to do with the alcohol sales industry. These kinds of traditional music spaces can feel exhausting and distracting from really, communing with one another and having deep listening experiences. I love, and a lot of the artists I work with in the community love making music, listening to music outside. And it was initially an experiment for a release show, an album release party for my friend Cool Maritime, Sean Helfrich. And we were looking for somewhere safe and free in LA, and we kept striking out because of all of the permitting and sort of regulations that the park and rec system in LA kind of has in place. And we just kept striking out, and then the homie Benedek was throwing parties with NTS at the small community art park down the street called La Tierra de la Culebra, and said, hey, I need you to link up with the people at this park who kind of steward the park. That park is kind of very much so a community park, very like a neighborhood sort of action league around the park, maintaining the park, throwing events, keeping the park healthy and alive and safe. So I met my friend Kevin, who now is one of the larger stewards of the park and works with the Arroyo Arts Collective, which is a nonprofit that organizes a lot of beautiful community events around the park. And he said, just do it. We love Leaving Records. We love dublab. Just do it. Try it out. I have some great speakers that I keep in my garage. We'll bring them out. We'll run power from the house next door.
Oh, wow.
And so we just dragged a long extension cable to the tree where we set up blankets under the tree and just made it happen. Maybe on that first event, there was 20 people maybe that showed up. But everyone who was there and the artists who were playing, it just felt so right. Everything about it just started aligning. So we're like, let's do this again. We need to do this again. Let's come back. Absolutely. Everyone was like, you should. We'll be here for you. The park will accommodate you. And so slowly but surely, I just started curating these shows every other week. And at first it was kind of modular synthesizer, ambient, environmental music, kind of specific, right? But then as the shows started going on and weeks went by, I was beginning to experiment with genre curation, opening up the genres and sort of, allowing in more of an inclusive sort of fabric of LA culture that I work within and play within and create within. So, live bands, live jazz, beats, and ambient, and experimental, and noise, and really just kind of fostering and harnessing this idea of a space for community that is free and kid-friendly, family-friendly,
Totally. And what I think I love so much about the name of this party is that it's not just a name, it's also a directive, right? It's sort of a prescription for happiness. Listen to music outside in the daylight under a tree. We need to do that more. And I think it's so interesting to think about, as we come out of the pandemic, how LA has this incredible opportunity to kind of redefine its nightlife or even day life musical ecosystem. And I hear a lot of people saying, I don't want to go back into the warehouses, and LA has so much natural environment and so many beautiful places where you can listen to music outside in the daylight under a tree. And I think you really are pioneering something, Matthew. I think you really started something that hopefully we'll see more of in the future.
Yeah.
I'd love to ask you a little more about what you were just talking about, sort of opening up genres. I know that one of Leaving Records' mottos is all genre, right? What does that mean?
Well, I was giving you a hard time about Goa and Psytrance and Goa trance. Take that with a grain of salt. I understand that unrelenting trance-inducing music in nature can be very effective on psychedelics and on mushrooms and stuff, right? I have had experiences like that. I have also had bad trips with Goa trance. So, but anyway, I love all genres of music. If it's good music, it's good music, as they say. But it goes deeper than that, I think. It's about experimentation and allowing. It's about really loving and allowing community to come into sort of the curatorial presentation of a label without being afraid and with total honor and respect and love of all walks of life and all genres. That's just the motherfucking philosophy, right? It's how I've always operated my label. And for my music, I experiment with a lot of different kinds of music. I sing folk songs. I make techno. I make hip-hop beats. I make experimental, weird ambient mushroom music, which is what I'll be playing today. But, it's just a huge quintessential value of mine that I just put all of my heart into the label, and that is a big component of the label and the ethos and philosophy. And that's what brings together the community, too.
Totally. Yeah. I love the idea of accessibility and inclusivity applying to the genre of music as well. Often when we talk about community, we talk about inclusivity, but it doesn't always apply to the types of sounds too. So that's pretty cool. I think that one of Leaving Records' sort of legacy is creating this sort of very expansive idea of what ambient and new age music can be as well. There was this really big New York Times piece that came out about you guys around the time that I started going to your parties, and I remember them kind of, talking about how new age music can be usually seen as very cheesy, but the way that you guys are doing it is very forward thinking.
Right.
I'd love to hear about your relationship to New Age. Were you always... I know that you kind of came from the brain feeder scene, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm sure you were listening to a lot of more sort of, dubby, sort of hip-hop influence kind of beats. Yeah. When did you start getting into New Age, and how did that sort of dovetail maybe with your spirituality?
Sure. I was experiencing... some of the darkest moments in my life, and was turning to a therapy for the first time. This was years ago, but through different sort of access points of therapy, I found philosophy, literature, spirituality, and music. And there were a few mentor friends, guides at the time that introduced a few very foundational pieces of music and records. One was Michael Stern's Planetary Unfolding, which is the holy grail of cosmic space music and ambient music, I feel. And at that time, that was just the gateway. And at that time, I was struggling so much with depression, and I was at the darkest moment of my life, and that record set me free, and I just followed that path and started exploring other artists around that time in the late 70s, 80s of America, privately issuing and releasing kind of new age psychedelic experimental music. And it just led me down this beautiful rabbit hole. And a lot of these artists were very DIY and punk in their operating, and distributing. And I just felt such a connection. Like, wow, these are just rogue, renegade, like DIY artists making experimental electronic psychedelic music like me. But it was so therapeutic, and it's crafted for therapy. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So
also, we're kind of we're like pressed up against this confrontational moment with New Age, and soon others in the community and myself will have to like address this problem, the problematic aspects, the controversial aspects of New Age right now, and how there's a lot of appropriative, conspiracy-related issues with New Age right now.
Right.
Maybe that have always been, but as far as that kind of DIY punk, self-released, privately issued aesthetic and ethos, I identify with that and all of these beautiful, hidden, yet to be uncovered gems of, it's like American folk music, but making like early primitive ambient psychedelic electronic music too. That's like a cool subset of New Age that I love, but now in 2021 with QAnon and all of these problematic, like colonialization, just like I'm just really want to address, somehow maybe even abandon New Age and call it something else, redefine it right now as it aligns to our values, because I don't know. I don't know. It just needs to be redefined right now. Yeah, and I've been having thoughts about that, and others in my community have been having thoughts about that too. So I just wanted to quickly just touch on that and say that.
I'm so happy that you brought that up, actually, because that does need to be a bigger part of this sort of psychedelic conversation. I think that, a huge proportion of people who are sort of QAnon or alt-right conspiracy leaning are also super into psychedelics. And there's a definite through line there between sort of, psychedelics showing you that the world is more than what you think it might be sober, and that there are, maybe hidden infrastructures that go beyond the realm of what you think is possible. And that can very easily lead you down the path towards conspiracies. Yeah. But I think, what you're doing, which is orienting it, back towards healing. Yeah. I think this is really important, right? Thinking about music as encouraging therapeutic sort of evolution, and also making music to relate to plants, right? I love that one of your most recent Living Records EPs or albums is called Music for Living Spaces. And I love that because, it's to me very obviously a reference to Brian Eno's Music for Airports, right? Music for Airports, Music for Living Spaces. And the idea of living space is not just being like your living room, but also a space that is alive. And, Sasha Geffen, who's one of my favorite music journalists ever, shout out Sasha, wrote this incredible Pitchfork review where he kind of talks about how this is music to inspire what kinds of rhythms and melodies might induce in people the opportunity to empathize somatically with plants. And to me, this is the essence of what a lot of psychedelic music is also about, right? I wanted to ask you, what do you think defines psychedelic music? I know there's so many definitions. Obviously, I just played 5 extremely disparate tracks. But to me, healing and relationship to nature are some of the most essential things. Organic textures.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think for me, the most formative quality of having a psychedelic experience is getting to know oneself more deeply. And in order to heal, quote, heal, you have to find yourself, your center, and know yourself. And you have to go through a lot of gunk and shit to get there. But psychedelics help unpack all of the constraints and the trauma and the binding stuff that restricts us from knowing and finding ourselves. And so then that's when, once you start knowing yourself, then you can start to heal, and then others can start to heal, and you can sort of start spreading information, whatever that information might be. It might be you giving a lecture. It might be your art. Yeah, that's my thing about that, I guess.
Love that. Yeah. So let's talk about your music as Mind Flight.
Cool.
The name Mind Flight to me, again, sounds very psychedelic. A flight of the mind. It sounds very like, a cerebral trip kind of. And I think I saw you describing it as crown chakra inspired music. What does that mean?
Well, that's very new agey of me to say. I'm not really sure if I still... So that was years ago, I guess. So I don't know when I said that, but... well, it's just relaxation music, therapeutic music to feel good by. Music to listen to and feel good, whether it helps you rest, helps you relax, helps you sleep, helps you commune with others, helps you tap into yourself, your essence. That's just what I'm going for. And a lot of times it has a lot to do with melody and harmony and tone. But now it's been getting weirder because I've been growing and getting weirder, and the more I experiment with psilocybin, the weirder shit gets. And so noise and texture and space and this idea of phasing is doubling and chorusing, and these kinds of just elements thrown into the mix with a very melodic, like hyper melodic sort of sensation, to me is very impactful, is very visceral with the listening experience. I love the Mind Flight is just like, take off. Just don't worry about, try not to worry about where you're at in your physical body on the physical plane. Just try to blast off into other dimensions, I guess. I don't want to sound too woo-woo-y here, but, lately it's been different. And I don't know how long I don't think I'm going to keep the Mind Flight name. I like just going under Matthewdavid, all one word. My next record, the Mycelium Music Project, I've been incubating for years. Ooh. I seriously have. And finally ready to release it. And I'm happy to play some soon. But it's very strange. Once you dial into like the mushroom collective, the mycelium network, once you start like playing around in that and getting familiar with that, it's as equally alien as it is terrestrial to me. It's just constantly being like, it's unfathomable to me and constantly evolving and shaping as we dial into it and start communicating with it. And music is my outlet to communicate with that network that binds everything together. Yeah.
Totally. Can we talk about your relationship to mushrooms? And, earlier you said that you've been going deeper and deeper into it. I'm sure that a lot of people can relate during this pandemic. It gave us all this sort of opportunity to do psychedelics at home and really turn inward. So how did your, deepening relationship to shrooms translate into the ways that you were making music and how it affected you creatively?
Yeah, well, psilocybin really humbles the soul and humbles the mind. You kind of have to trudge through a bit of muck in order to get out to the greener pastures of the other side of your mushroom trip, right? And with each experience, it's just so humbling, right? And you kind of come out of it very alive and sort of renewed and awake and very inspired. And, it's just like a reset or a recharge on the macro level. On the micro level, it's just a non-psychoactive coloration or a non-psychoactive sort of herbal supplementation for focus and clarity and air. So it's been beautiful throughout the pandemic, experimenting on the micro level creatively and the macro. Two very important and necessary sort of like regimens for myself in my creative practice. I find psilocybin is fuel for my creative practice. It's this endless wells of inspiration from the network that you tap into. And there's just, I just think it's so beautiful and it needs to be shared. So I'm just trying to share it as much as I can artistically through my creative practice and artistic expression, which right now is in the form of this hypertextural, melodic, noisy ambient music, really.
That's amazing.
Which is like this kind of new. It's just the evolution of my relationship with New Age. I think the New Age zone for me was a little softer, more gentler. And now it's like, it's a little more abrasive. But I think that's sick.
Yeah, definitely.
Just like you playing that crazy, like Norwegian, like unrelenting pounding music. Like I fuck with that. I fuck with that concept and that idea.
Right.
It doesn't have to always be associated with industrial or like warehouse. It could be translated into a different context of nature.
And
too.
it's the little elements that help it to be translated, right?
I
These
was
little
tapping into those.
these like layers, what you were talking about with phasing. Like this to me is what makes the music so rich and therefore psychedelic. So mycelium music, you've been working on it for years?
Yeah, off and on. It's been like my little baby, and I just haven't really shown it off to many people. I've been just this last year starting to really feel good about showing it off, performing it, releasing it. And I have some really cool things planned as far as rollout and just how I'll be releasing this music. I'm pretty excited about it. Yeah, y'all know about NFTs?
Yeah, do we know about NFTs? Yes.
Also, I've been doing a quarantine hobby of mine has been doing like hydro dipping, marbling experiments of different music media formats like cassettes and vinyl record sleeves.
I saw that.
So I'll be doing like very small run mycelium music, marbled edition releases that I feel pretty good about. Things like that. Yeah. There's we're gonna check all the boxes if we can. It's gonna be like a pretty ambitious project, and I've been waiting. So yeah, I've been saving a little bit, so I have a bit of resources for this one, and it'll be an experiment. But I fucking love experimentation. I will live and die by experimenting, and I encourage more people to experiment. That's why I love mushrooms and these weird parties that we throw, and that's the spice of life. As cheesy as that is, experimentation is like that's it.
Hell yeah! Leaving records, drop a shroom NFT. So
people are gonna love it. You're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it, I guess.
So how was this album made? Was it all made in the box, or did you use any like synths or anything like that?
Oh yeah, I've always made music, however, from whatever. I come from like a sample-based hip hop background. Digging through crates of old records and tapes and sampling. And then as I went on my vision quest, as I grew, I started experimenting with different acoustic instruments and collecting synths. I fly in sounds from everywhere. I don't have a problem making music completely in the box on my laptop. I also love like abandoning the laptop and making music only on my 4-track cassette recorder. And then I love marrying it all together too. So I'm just inspired by sounds in the world around me, and I just try to fly in everything I can and make it make sense.
Okay, cool. So you do have some samples in there too.
Totally, yeah, totally.
Amazing. Any interesting ones?
Well, this set, I'm pulling from source material from a live performance at the park that I played.
Cool.
And sort of resampling and recontextualizing that and elongating it, stretching it out in a new way, which I'm happy to try out right now. So
cool.
So yeah.
So will you be throwing that party in the park again? Is it coming back?
Yes, it's coming back.
Hell yeah.
We're gonna start word of mouth only.
You heard it here first.
We're gonna start gently and strategically. It's not up to me to just run back in there and start doing shows. There's like a huge neighborhood and community and like, a league of people, a committee of people who look after and maintain and organize and curate that park, right? So I'm in conversation constantly throughout the pandemic with the park community, as it were, the overseers of the main people who maintain that area. So late July, early August, be on the lookout. I'm not going to make a flyer and promote it. If I did that, it would just be too messy. I want it to be gentle. I want it to be smart. I want it to feel good. So
yeah,
it's not like I'm going to bring Flying Lotus back out to the park on the first one. I'm not going to do that.
Although that was iconic.
We're gonna do it just a little bit more low key at first, and then start to gain our rhythm. And feel out the flow and the energy from there. Yeah.
I think that's really important. I think we need to think a lot about sort of a transition out of the pandemic. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, I want to go buck wild. I want to go fucking party. And it's like, I don't know. Are we really ready? Like, I feel like we're carrying so much pain, so much grief, so much loss from this pandemic. One of the reasons why I threw my shroom rave in a park with like, maybe 10, 20 people is because I thought of it very much as a ritual of release from all of the pain and death that we've been going through. And this is where I think psychedelics can really play a role as well, right? I think we need more rave as ritual, and that sort of thinking about parties as a way to release and process all of the trauma that we've gone through is definitely one future that I hope to see more of. So on that note, I'm wondering, do you have any sort of like wishes or foretellings of what you see the future of LA's psychedelic party scene to be?
I don't know. I think that what I would love to hope, what I would put out there to hopefully manifest collectively is just, a slow moving away from the traditional constructs and systems of experiencing live music in these institutionalized venues that are hinged to alcohol consumption and corporate sponsorships, and moving into like, a more healing place where psychedelics are acceptable and all ages are acceptable, and the move into the shift into the alternative is what I hope to see, and will be trying to do, honestly. Put it into action. I know you're putting it into action, so am I, and others are right on the same page, because this is a vision that we want to see and make real.
Totally. Yeah. I think that, nightlife and party culture is obviously going to explode post-pandemic. We're going to see so many corporate raves. But I believe in the underground. I believe in the rave. I believe in the power of the trip. And I think we're definitely on the same wavelength on that. So I'm very, very excited to hear some of the music that you're about to play for us.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Hope y'all like it.
Thank you so much. All right. So now we have Matthewdavid. Thank you guys so much. I'm Michelle Luke, and this is our closing set. Wow, vibes, vibes, vibes. Thank you so much, Mind Flight. Whew, I hope you guys are feeling good, because I am. I just got stoned outside. So for the closing sort of come down, I think I'm going to play this really cool mix that my friend Moral made for my last IRL party, Weed Rave. It was a Halloween party. And we did it at an old grow house in downtown. DJ Assault was our headliner. He was a trip. Camilo from London. Shout out Cami. Kelman Duran, Aura, Moral, Flapjack, Julian Andreas. It was sick. It was really, really sick. We had an indica room and a sativa room and an outdoor area serving infused PB&Js. And everyone just came in like the cutest, funniest stoner looks, just like it was Halloween. So a lot of weed-inspired outfits. And what I loved the most about it is that, there's sort of a kind of thing that happens when a bunch of people are just super stoned. I feel like everyone just gets like way more mellow and like just nicer to each other somehow. And it's really hard to be like mean and judgy to people when you're super stoned.